And basically what I'm pointing out to you is there's definitions to a mechanical breath versus a spontaneous breath. What's the difference between CPAP and PEEP?
CPAP is just continuous, and
PEEP
then
is
PEEP is only
expiratory.
positive and expiratory pressure.
Okay. But they both do the same thing, right?
PEEP is
CPAP is also providing inspiratory support. No?
There's not something
PEEP
like
has
pressure.
a rate.
Pressure. Huh?
PEEP has a rate.
Very good. There's all these subtle little things that we're going to talk about. These subtle little things make a difference. PEEP, like you said, is inexpiratory, which means there's a mechanical rate. Okay. If there's no mechanical rate, then it's called CPAP, right? So remember we talked about CPAP, then we talked about BiPAP, and then on here we call it PS CPAP, which is pressure support CPAP. So just be mindful. If I press this, it comes over here, and I'm gonna turn that down a little bit. I like whole numbers a little easier. And the things I'm showing you is that all this stuff you already know, and little changes, they just call them something else. So if I have it over here, pressure support of 10, above PEEP, and a PEEP of 5. If I took them off this ventilator, if the doc said, hey, and they do this, the doc says, yeah, go ahead and extubate, and put them on the BiPAP, put them on the Servo U with the same settings. Well, not a Servo U, that's not fair because it works the same way. But let's put them on a V60, let's say. So what settings would I use? Because that's BiPAP instead of CPAP pressure support.
5 over 15.
What was the question?
So, but
Well done. So this one tells you the CPAP level, and then it tells you the pressure support, right? Just like, you know what? We're gonna do a PEEP of 5, and then I'm gonna do 10 above that. But my peak pressure is gonna be 15. The other one wants the IPAP, which is 15, and the EPAP. What happens when you subtract the IPAP from the EPAP? You get,
Pressure.
right, so just be mindful of that. And you can set it right time. This is a spontaneous mode, and you have a spontaneous breath. Because I determine when I take the breath, I determine how long I'm gonna take the breath, right? I determine the bond, I determine everything about this breath. That's me. If I take any of that away, it's no longer a spontaneous breath. That being said, when you're doing your, keep saying this, whatever. Whenever you're doing your vent checks, and you're in any of these modes up here, and it gets down there, it'll say spontaneous rate. There's just a total. Spontaneous tidal volume, there isn't one. So just as a rule of thumb, 99.9% of the time this is true, if there's not pressure support, it's not spontaneous. There are rare occurrences where they will put them on the pressure control ventilation with a pressure support of 0, which really serves no purpose except to kind of control the rate, which I don't think that's ever been done. So if it doesn't have pressure support, which this one does, it's just called something else. This one does, these three do. These have spontaneous tidal volumes. But keep in mind, when you're using these up here, you don't, except for BiVent. There's always that one exception. BiVent, when you put the patient on there, there is a set rate that you give. Complicated, we worry about it another day, but they basically breathe on CPAP at the high level and the low level, but there's two different levels where they breathe spontaneous. Don't worry about that today, that's way too much. These are the modes that Calvin's going to check you off on. Pressure control, PRVC, volume control. These labs are always open. We got another ventilator across the way we can hook up to the wall if you want to practice. And basically, we got pressure control with SIMV, pressure support. We have PRVC with pressure support as well, if you so choose. We also have volume control with pressure support, if you so choose. So basically, in pressure control, these three modes, if I set the rate to 15, can you breathe over that? Absolutely, yeah. So, but it's not spontaneous. If you trigger a breath after that, it's still gonna go to my preset settings, and it's gonna do the preset time, the preset eye time, the preset everything, right? It's just gonna lag. You trigger it, this is what you get. It's up to me, not up to you. However, when you're in these modes, so I have pressure, let's say, well, PRVC, that's what everybody uses. So we got a patient, we got to set on a rate of 15, it's giving them the 15 breaths, right? But if they breathe in between the 15 breaths, it's CPAP pressure support. They're going to determine, we'll set the pressure support to 5, 10, 15, and then they'll trigger the breath, and then they'll determine how long it lasts, how big it is, and all those other factors. Okay? So just be mindful of that. That's the biggest difference between these. We'll worry about this in the fall. And then the difference between these. So this is 3 modes. Now we're gonna make it, those modes with pressure support ventilation. And then these down here are a little bit different. Don't worry about NAVA. We don't even do that in the adult world. That's just purely in the NICU. I think it's a great idea and it works great, but it costs a lot of money. And you'll find that money goes to babies, not adults. And then CPAP pressure support. So this is an interesting thing here, volume support, which we're not gonna go over that one much today. But, where'd it go? Oh, here we go, volume support. Okay, volume support. So in volume support, you come over here and you set a tidal volume, and basically it adjusts, essentially, you say, hey, I want a tidal volume of 400. You're like, okay. So as the patient breathes, it'll either give them more pressure support or less pressure support to hit that target. Not like, exactly. I was getting ready, very good, very good. Jumping ahead of me, I love that. So exactly, AVAPs on the machine, which is what I'm getting ready to say, is the exact same thing over here, except it's called volume support. So I set it on 400, I set it or whatever, and it jumps according to the pressure support, just like you would in AVAPs. There's no difference. It's the exact same thing. Okay. Now, the part that Marnie's gonna be going over with you too, and part of what Calvin's gonna do, is we're not gonna break down these modes of ventilation today. That's gonna be a little bit later. But basically, in a nutshell, pressure control ventilation. So just like we talked about, I keep going back to the very beginning. You have CPAP, right? Then you have pressure support. It's the exact same thing, but now I'll give it a rate. Instead of it being called pressure support, it's now called pressure control. There's no other difference. Okay. So we got a CPAP pressure support. I got 40%, 10/5, 30. That's my end expiratory. We'll go over that another day. Unless, did James already go over that with you? Expiratory cycle off percentage? You may have heard it called? Okay. Well, we can go over that as well. You have a rise time and you have a trigger, and then you have a backup. Okay? So now let's go to pressure control ventilation. I have the exact same thing, but now I have a rate and a high time. Massive difference for the patient though. Massive difference. Okay.
What does the rate do again? I'm more confused.
How many times it delivers that pressure in this particular mode per minute. So if we put them on here with 3, we're only going to deliver 3, and they can trigger in between that if they want to. But if they don't, they only get the 3. Okay. Any questions on that? Okay. So the difference between this one is I set the pressures and I go up there and I kind of say, okay, these are the tidal volumes I'm looking for. We're good. Just like you do on the BiPAP, you kind of adjust the IPAP, looking for those tidal volumes that you're looking for, 6, 7, 8 mLs per kg, right? And then you come over to PRVC. So PRVC, exact same thing. So I'll tell you, is PRVC a pressure mode or a volume mode?
Volume.
Okay.
Pressure, volume.
So you guys haven't been through this part yet. This is the part that Marty's gonna go over. You'll look at the waveforms. This is a pressure mode. So this is exactly like pressure control ventilation. Except now I'm gonna adjust the amount of pressure you get to get the volume that I set. So you remember in pressure control ventilation, I have a set pressure here and down here, and I don't care what your volume is. It's just gonna deliver those pressures, right? And then I go over here to this one, I set a time of 400, it's gonna go up and down those pressures using the exact same things to get that tidal volume in. And if it's like, if you're only breathing out 350, it's gonna go up a little bit on the pressure each time until it hits that 300, 400. Now, once you reach a certain part, it'll start alarming, and when it hits that high pressure alarm, then it's gonna cut off. So if I have a tidal volume setting here of 600, and it goes to deliver, and it hits the high peak pressure at 30, we have to set at 30, and only delivered 300, it's gonna stop at 300. It won't go above that. And I'm gonna tell you, that's good to know, because whenever you get an asthmatic patient or something like that, like Dr. Roberts, it happened with me and him. We went there, he said, Carl, how come the patient's not getting the volume? I was like, oh. And he had tried to adjust the volume, and then I turned up the high pressure alarm, and then she started getting her volume. So just know that that's not only alarm, but it actually cuts off as well. Be aware of that. And then the last one, which we don't use much around here at all, is volume control. This one sets a ton of volume. Everything's the same, right? And if you adjust the IDE here, it adjusts your flow rate. And whenever it goes to give the breath, it doesn't care about pressures. It only cares about delivering the volume. So we'll deliver the volume. If it delivers the volume with 10 or pressure of 80, it does not care. That's the difference between all the three modes, really. So this one, the pressure is all over the place. The other one, the volume's all over the place. And then the one in between tries to balance that. Okay. And just to go ahead and cover PRVC, there is a negative thing to it, which we use quite often. So what it does is, like I said, it goes up and down with the pressure accordingly, right? It's like, oh, you hit, let's say I had the tidal volume set at 400, the patient's actually wanting 500 tidal volume. And so the patient's pulling in extra strong. So they're pulling in stronger, deeper, going above 400. Guess what the machine says? Oh my God, this guy's doing great. We're giving him too much. It lowers the amount of work it does for you. So now you have to pull harder and more. And it's like, oh, this patient's doing really good, and it keeps giving you less and less support. So the patient has to work harder and harder because they want a higher tidal volume. That's the negative side of it. And we see it sometimes, and even we have talks with doctors, sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. I mean, it can be kind of alarming when you sit there seeing a patient do that. And you go in here and change all these buttons. You can see it shows you how the IDE ratio changes and stuff like that. Have you guys got any kind of lessons on ventilators yet?
Not really, no.
Okay. Just know on your IDE ratio, generally we're looking for something that's 1 to 2, unless you're air trapping, then we want something more, 1 to 3 or more. And we'll go more than that. And last but not least, this machine will do high flow if it's been downloaded. How many of you have done high flow through here before? I know you have. Oh yeah, it's pretty neat, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty cool. And you just literally come over, it has to be a heated wire circuit, you disconnect it, and you just have the blue tubing, connect the thing, put it on the nose, good to go. The beauty of this, you can roll this in, you can do ventilator, you can do NIV, and you can do high flow, one machine. Back in the old days, we'd have to wipe this down, clean it, put it back together, grab another machine, then we'd have to bounce back and forth. Now we just got one machine, which is really beautiful.
I have a question about the IDE ratio.
Yeah.
So, like, I guess like a normal patient who doesn't require ventilation, the IDE is 1 to 3. So my question is why with ventilation it's 1 to 2?
Well, generally with 1 to 2, and I'll tell you, there's a lot of variation on that. Generally with a rate, so we'll set the rate at 16, and it breaks down, so it doesn't actually measure out. So if you set this to 1, you may have, a second and a half to 2 seconds, and generally 2 seconds is enough for the lungs to get all the air back out. One way to verify it, have you guys heard of auto peak? Well, so auto peak is them still exhaling when it goes to give them another breath. So if they're still exhaling, that's called auto peak, and we can measure that. Then we can tighten things up, because 1 to 2 is probably good for you and me, but he may need a 1 to 2.5. And if he has auto peak, I can turn down the I time a little bit and give him more time to exhale. So maybe we can go 1 to 2.5 or 1 to 3, but like we can go 1 to 6 on asthmatic, or a lot of times you'll see 1 to 1.6, 1.9 on our sicker patients. As when you get into ARDS, we do really fast rates. So it goes in quick, comes out quick. And especially if they're restrictive lung disease, they exhale so quickly because their lungs just come back like a really tight balloon versus the floppy balloon like a COPD. Usually speaking, just so you know, most patients are in between. Your COPDers will come in here, but they also have a pneumonia. COPD is obstructive, where pneumonia is restrictive, so you get a lot of combos of things. So then it's basically coming up here, and the thing I want you to do is be able to look at the ventilator, read the output that is given to you, manipulate it best for your patient. Because you can take a patient who's, I remember she had an I time of 1, and you can see on the waveform a little bump right there. That was her exhaling before the thing was done. And so I went from 1 to 0.9, smooth after that, she calmed down and relaxed. Because once you have all your settings in here, doing what you wanna do, then you go in there with the waveforms and things